in India, you need to have someone who knows the genre that you are going for. This is the song that kind of pissed me off, dude. A band who does not tune their instruments. We lack producers. Don't forget to subscribe or I'll freaking nine your face! Yeah, welcome back guys. My name is Mr. Kev and you're watching Single and Ready to Mingle, but I am going to call this a special episode because it's not a single, it's an album that we are going to talk about, but it's also singles of many artists, a compilation album of sorts. This compilation album that they are doing is called Indie 100 India. You should go check it out. It's on Spotify. If you guys haven't been following me, go subscribe to my channel. There are some amazing content waiting for you. I put out a video almost every week talking about various things, actually putting out my music, and be a part of my journey as a musician, as an indie musician. It would mean a lot to me. Guys, I need 3,500 view hours to actually monetize my channel. So I want you guys to help me out by watching my videos. And before we start with the video, I love the idea of taking indie artists and getting them onto the same platform, making them perform, identifying what kind of sound they have, put them in the studio, record, put a compilation album. I love the idea with students, like students mixing the album. It becomes a part of their portfolio as well. So it is a great idea. Is it yielding results? That's where I have my concerns, right? I admire Indie 100 India and the steps that they've taken to make sure that this happens. No matter what the result is, they make sure this happens almost every year. We have a certain amount of respect for you guys bringing us this particular opportunity, giving us this opportunity to come to a studio, record our songs, and then actually being put on Spotify. Many of us can't afford it. It's great that there are these kind of programs that actually help us out. With that said, there are things that I want to talk about, and this is a concern because these are artists whose first impression is probably in the hands of Indie 100 India. It has me wondering if it is working at all. Let me get one thing out of the way. I love all the songs in the album. I'll tell you what, I heard the album almost 5 times. 5 times now. So I kind of understand what the songs are. I know what the bands are, who the bands are. They are my brethren from the indie scene, my peers from the indie scene, and I love them to bits. This is an opportunity that they get to put out their music. It means a lot that somebody actually is taking an initiative to do something like this. But there are certain things that tick me off. And I'm sure you as a listener, this obviously is a factor. When you're listening to it, you wonder, you make judgments of musicians. You make a judgment, like this is what you determine musicians by. You go out there and if somebody comes and tells you, hey, do you know about this band? What do you think about this band? You're going to be like, yeah, I've heard one song of theirs. Like, yeah, right? Because you judge them by that one song that you've heard. Is it fair? No, definitely not. But that's how people think. That's how people work. Is it worth going for Indie Earth is a question that I will ask. So a little bit of an idea of what Indie 100 is. They have this exchange program with another university in Australia, if I'm not mistaken, where they bring in students from Australia, sound students from Australia, to come and take part in a cultural exchange of sorts, where they get involved in the process of sitting and mixing for Indian indie artists. And that's how the culture of Indie 100 works. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. Getting students to mix for indie artists, it's not something new. It's been done before. Hey, I was teaching where I had students come in and bring in bands and record their work and obviously send their mix. And these are students who are learning. So obviously while learning the craft, you make mistakes. The whole idea is that you make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. So in that format, it makes sense, kids making mistake about mixing and stuff. When you're putting it out for a band, it's their work that is out there, and that is where it's concerning. And I know a lot of people don't talk about indie earth. I mean, they generally don't talk about indie earth from the basic exchange that I've had prior to this, because let's take a look at indie 2018, if I'm not missing, or 2017. They had one of my favorite bands. Big Sam had been featured in that indie 100 that particular set. So when I had spoken to Big Sam, this is one of the things that I got to know, and I saw that they follow the same trend for last year's Indie 100 as well. What they do is they bring in a set of musicians for a particular showcase, and then they have a sort of a seminar where they sit with these sound engineers and producers from Australia, the other university that we were talking about, and they have a small discussion of sorts, if I'm not mistaken. And then what happens is they go to recording, and these recordings happen within a span of a day. It doesn't go beyond that. Very rare extreme cases do they actually consider bringing in an extra day to record some extra stuff. Last year I was planning on applying. That's when I heard about how this thing works out. I had my second thoughts about applying for Indie 100 series, and I don't know if I was right or wrong, because I'll get into it. There are some things that did not work or do not work at all for this particular format. Let's talk about what music is and how it's produced. See, music production is an art of its own. I'm talking about like the classic producer. The producer is the one who actually understands the band's sound. Like, if you're a band, if you're an indie band, they understand your sound. They invest themselves into your sound and then deliver on it, right? That is what a producer does. So they will help you choose your tones. They will help you understand whether the direction they're taking is worth going for or not. It's great to have a producer because you get a third person's opinion. You're not involved in the songwriting process. You're not involved in the song making or the music making process. So you're not invested in the song as much as you would be if you were writing the song. So what happens is the producer comes in, they're like, you know what, this sounds okay, but it's not fitting in well. Why don't you try this instead? Something like that. Someone like that is very important in making albums, making songs, producing songs for a band. It really helps having a third person's perspective, somebody who you can trust to guide you through. And that's the job of a producer. So you pay a producer to keep a check on you. That's basically what a producer does. They keep a check on you, performing on time, whether you're practicing, whether you developed your sound, and whether the sound that you've developed is worth it, or if it needs tweaking, etc. See, it's a hand-in-hand process. From what I know, in India, most of the bands do not have producers, and that is the biggest downfall of Indian indie music scene. Okay, most of the cases of musicians doing well or doing well with the sound. Okay, I'm not talking about commercial or monetary wise doing well. I'm talking in terms of sound. It's usually the artist who knows what they want. They have enough experience to know what kind of sound they want and whether it'll work at all. So in India, we lack producers, and the lack of producers is the biggest downfall. For bands, for indie bands, indie rock bands, indie metal bands, etc. Usually what happens is that the sound engineer becomes the producer for the band. You don't know, but the sound engineer usually is the producer for the band. You won't agree with me, because the sound engineer is the one who develops your sound. Because you don't, trust me, if you're an indie artist who does not know sound, does not know jack about sound, it is the mixing engineer who determines or dictates your sound. Whether you like it or not, that person is the one who dictates your sound. So, coming to this, in India, we have your sound engineers or your mixing engineers. They essentially are your producers. That is the classic terminology of producer. Okay. Today we have electronic music producer, which is completely different. Today, when you talk about producer, you usually talk about a music producer who does music, right? So someone like the person who I worked with, Anand Kasinath, is a music producer. Now, somebody else who is a music producer that I work with is my sound engineer, Sajan A. Stanley. He technically is one of my producers. Whether I like it or not, he becomes the producer because he dictates the sound that I have. If you don't like my sound, go blame it on Sajan, okay? So, not throwing shade at you. Okay, now that said, the only way your song will work on rec is if three things align. Your sound matches in the studio, you're able to deliver on the sound, like your performance. Your performance has to be top notch. Going in tired and performing and that is not how it works. You need to be at your best to actually deliver on the studio, because everybody is going to have the studio version in mind before they come to your live shows or whatever. Your delivery has to be pristine at the studio. Number 2, the equipments and the sound that you use should work. Number 3, you need to have someone who actually knows the genre that you are going for well enough to mix for it. So if I get somebody who's historically been mixing electronic music to mix my punk song, it might not work all that well. You need somebody who knows how to mix the punk song, or who is invested, who really enjoys that sort of music, to understand what you're going for, to have a reference point of what their song or their mix is going to sound like, and then deliver on it. If these three things fall in place, usually your studio version is going to sound good. This is not the mix that I'm talking about, just the song sounding good. Not even jumped into the artists, and I'm worried, to be very honest. These are my friends from the indie scene, and that's what has me a little tensed up when I'm talking about this particular scenario. Let's get into Indie 100 song list. It starts with one of my favorite bands, which is the Owl Monk Collective. They have never put out a song. This is technically the first song they are putting out. And the first song they're putting out is a song called Clarity. The recorded version sounds just about what it would sound like in the live version. So as far as production goes, the thought put into producing the song is like bare minimum. Let's listen to Clarity. That's the first song on the album. So that was Clarity by the Owl Monk Collective. Love this song, okay? I've heard it 1,000 times. I'm not even kidding. I've recorded them so many times that I know the song sort of by heart, okay? And they have a great sound. One of the artists is Bimal Tangachan, who kind of knows sound because he's been experimenting. From personal experience, I know that he's been experimenting on how his sound has to be. He has been working his ass off to make sure he develops his own sound, and I believe that if they release their work, it's going to have its own sound. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to hear that. But yeah, this mix was okay. It wasn't all that bad. But let's move on to the next one. The next song is Rishwan's Lights in Berlin.
Lights in Berlin, in Berlin. Lights in
So that was Lights in Berlin. Something about my man Rishwin over here is he knows his sound, because Rishwin has been a producer for such a long time that I would have been surprised if the song sounded trash. Because Rishwin delivers, dude. Rishwin, you can count on him in terms of his sound any time of the day. So that's the thing. Rishwin has had a prior experience of what music production has been like. So he knows what sound to use, what kind of tones to use, and if you hear, most of it I think was done like at the studio. Whatever it was reached is what they delivered. It's nothing more, nothing less, right? It's what Rishwin planned and it's worked. So Rishwin's song Lights in Berlin, that was I really like the song, Rishwin. Let's move to the next one. This is by Joined by the Sea, and the song is called Lucid Dreams. Joined by the Sea are also friends of mine.
the colors of my dream play along. I can fly if
I want you guys to listen to this as so that was the only creative thing that I saw. Now let's get into this particular song. Now I know that Joined by the Sea do not have prior experience working with sound and producing tracks. So I know they were left, at the mercy of whoever was producing it. And trust me, with what kind of equipment they had to work around with, I think the song has come out well. But of course, because of the lack of a certain sense of direction in terms of what the song has to be, how the song can be done better, what they can add to, obviously there is only one day that they get a certain set number of hours. I believe 6 hours. Just impossible to work with. Like that kind of a strict schedule is way too hard for a band or like a bunch of artists to actually pull off. And even for the sound engineers, even if the sound engineers were veterans, there would have been a lot of issues with just one session getting done with instruments. Like drum sessions, from what I can tell, takes at least a few hours to set up. It takes a few hours, like setting up the mic and stuff takes a while. So other than that, making sure that the drum is in tune, those are factors. Over here, obviously, it's the Cajones, and they've done a good job. See, certain things like the guitar solo over here, those are things that I would actually tweak. There are things that I would want to recommend the band, saying, hey, over here, instead of doing this, can you guys try out something like this? Being a little bold with the band is kind of important for a mixing engineer and a producer, because trust me, it's your name on the line when it comes to being a mixing engineer or a producer. If you don't point out the band, nobody else will. That's the whole reason why you are employed. Hey, this is not working out. Why don't you try this? This does not seem right, but how about trying this? So that's where the knowledge of this kind of music, the kind of the music that they were going for, the producer or the mixing engineer in this particular case need to have a particular direction. They need to have a sense of direction so that they can move towards it. I don't know if they had a certain direction or but this is the situation. Like I believe the song could have been much better. Let's move on to the next track. The next track is called Easy by Tabby and Sanjay.
It's drowning me
that was Easy by Tabby and Sanjay. I have nothing much to say about this. I think it was a fairly simple mix. You are saved because you don't have to deal with drums. You don't have to deal with bass. You don't have to worry about masking. So yeah, Tabby and Sanjay are great musicians. That's why they deliver. Because it's indie folk, right? You can go in any direction and let's just call it, you can just say, yeah, that's what I went for. That's what I wanted. There are things that you can do, of course, but did the song come out well? Yes, it did. Let's move on. The next song is Lost Vegas by CZG.
Yes, it's part of the game. There's a tune calling out to me. It's time to set me free. I hear the ringing in my head. It's getting louder, so everybody
I love the transition on this one. I enjoyed it. The interesting thing is, we heard drums here, guys. We heard drums, we heard bass over here. I'm actually surprised that there isn't any masking because I know it's very easy to get masked. We know for a fact that the recordings sound great because it's recorded in a proper studio. If you were to mix and if you expect a student to mix a particular song, the basic level, this is that. With some basic effects. One thing I noticed was that lack of understanding of how the sound or the tone has to be. There's a tonal change in the vocals. I've seen CCG perform and I like them as a band. They're really good, they're really tight. And you know that they are good when you can hear the guitars and it's not off tune. Because in such a scenario, I know for a fact that it's very easy to get a band who does not tune their instruments. Especially the guitars. I can't tell you, I have made this mistake of recording guitars with the, detuned innumerable times. Like so many times I've recorded my guitar detuned without knowing. It's not that you won't tune your instruments, it's just that you're unaware that it's not tuned. So what you end up doing is you keep playing. You phase out the concept of like this being in tune. You know a few things are in tune, so you just go with it, and it's distortion. So it's very easy to get your instruments detuned and you not notice it. So props to the band for making sure their instruments are tuned. I think it would have helped the band if they had tweaked the vocals at certain sections. You'd know that you won't get the best out of these musicians when it's just a set amount of time. Let's move on to the next song. It's Threat by Alarte.
I looked all around, a glass in my hand. My heart beats fast before I hold her. She got me, I know it. She gives me, I love it. Just feeling something, there's somebody. She got me, I know it. She gives me, I love it. She's with this, I'm restless tonight. She's a major twang.
Man, hats off, dude. I love this song, Alarte. I really like it. But here's where you notice that the mix isn't top notch. The vocals drown out. That's the portion you lost me. I can't hear what's happening. But yeah, Alarte, from what I hear, they sound like a really tight band. It's quite impossible to have this level of performance if you're not a good band. This sounds good, dude. This sounds good. And I think the person who was mixing it was genuinely into the song. So you can hear minor things. You can hear minor things like there's a break. There's an effect that they've used on the voice which tweaks the, like, sort of a radio voice. You're paying attention to the song, you're paying attention to the lyrics, you're trying to make sure the song sounds good, you're invested in the song while mixing it. Like, genuinely interested in the genre, genuinely interested in the band. You can sort of tell that. I like it. Mistakes aside, yes, you should definitely go stream it. Moving to the next song, this is Vadi Vadi by The Eclipse. Okay, so this is the song that kind of pissed me off, dude. I know this band, I love the song, I've seen them perform this song live, and I really enjoy it live. This was a bad performance in the studio. Below par, dude, I am very disappointed that this is how the song turned out to be. There is some sort of masking that's happening here. The vocals, dude. Like, so what happens is this psychoacoustic phenomena. I can tell you when you have your headphones on, and if your volume is being pumped up so much, you tend to perceive your perception of the frequency or the pitch changes. The vocalist here, I know for a fact, is tired because you can hear it in his voice. His vocal texture easily screams out that, dude, I am dead tired, my voice is hoarse, I can't sing today, but I'm going to sing because I have no other option. In that state, not a great option to have vocalists sing. When your levels are way too high on your ears, right, your brain starts perceiving the frequency to be pushed up or down, depends. Like, I'm not very clear on this. I think it is pushed up. Your frequency tends to, you feel like the frequency is higher if your level is pushed up by a few cents. And that's what happened. He's like, the music is happening over here while he is singing right over here. It's an easy fix. You can put it on a Melodyne, push it down, or like select the entire wave file, push it down slightly by a few cents, and you're done. It'll work. But here, the problem is the vocalist is way too tired. You hear this, at the end of the song. That's when I'm like, he takes a breath there. That implies that he was way too. It's like he came running and then they immediately like, go sing right now. We don't have much time. It just feels like that. And this feels just like that. See? So over here, what I'm noticing is there is a clear tonal difference. The drums are here, the bass is somewhere lying around, and the guitars are somewhere out there. There is no, like, the foundation is the drums. You lay down the drums and make sure your bass, your guitars, all these match. Obviously, since it's the learning stage, when you're thrown at it, not everyone is natural. So it takes a while for them to understand. And I know this person who mixed this track will just keep getting better. And tomorrow you might find this person just mixing mind-blowing stuff. This is way too amateur. I can clearly hear it in the song. It's just, we have seen other mixes in the same album that sound good. So I'm assuming this is a completely different person who mixed it. I guess each one is given a like separate person to mix. It's definitely not the same person mixing. I would be surprised if it's the same person mixing for all these tracks, because the drums were fairly well mixed when it came to CCG's, the bare minimum that we spoke about, and on Alarte it was fairly decent. See, the difference is, what I believe is that Alarte and CCG sort of know their sound and they match their instruments to make sure they blend in well, even in their live performance. Might not be the same case for Eclipse. It's not their fault. They are bound by certain limitations. But I hope that they record more works, they put out more works, so that they get the experience that they want, or the experience and exposure that they need to become better artists, or in the studio. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. This is Rag Shri Agarkar's Ek Muskurahat. This is like a much better mix. Of all the songs we've heard so far, this song is much better mixed. Like, just listen to it. Like, you'll understand what I'm talking about. There is very thoughtfully placed FX the drums don't mask the vocals. Yes guys, that was Ek Muskurahat by Ragashri Agarkar. This by far is one of my favorite tracks in terms of the mix as well as the song. I really enjoyed it. Like, it was refreshing to see vocals being treated really well. I really enjoyed the vocals in this. I thought the vocals was well mixed. The drums in parts was well mixed. And the sarod was like, I believe it's the sarod. Let me know if I make a mistake. Tell me if it's not a sarod, but the sarod also. Well done treatment of getting the tones right, getting these voicings right. It's very hard to get that right for songs like this, and I genuinely enjoyed. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one is The Rage of Riti Gaula, and this is a band called the Cosmic Convergence. I want you guys to go and listen to the entire song. This is Rage of Riti Gaula by the Cosmic Convergence. Yeah, I liked it. I thought there was that moment when I was like, I think they might just nail this, and then they disappoint me when it comes to the whole. That's when you hear a lot of masking, dude. Oh God, come on. I think the band is actually a really, really innovative band. It's very interesting to see where they will go. I am looking forward to hearing them on studio albums more often, because I don't think they will sound anything like this in their live. I can't wait to hear you guys more in the scene, and I would love to hear your studio album if you guys actually make one. It's very interesting to see atmospheric Carnatic rock. That's been the last song, guys. This has been Indie 100 India. This playlist or this album is on Spotify, so go check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Yes, please go follow these artists. These are some amazing artists from the scene. We would love to see the support coming from all of you. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, or I'll freaking iron your face. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.
Yeah.